Hey everybody, we're back with another Brush Sauce critique. The challenge was the big trouble in the hot springs with certain sub-themes. You know, the trouble can be religious-based, environmental-based, or some kind of struggle for power. And today, I'm happily joined by Jessica, so thank you for joining me.
Hello.
And yeah, we got a bunch of cool submissions. So as you guys know the setup, we picked our 10 chosen ones that we'll go in and get feedback on. And then whatever time is left after, I will also put the new challenge info up and touch upon everybody else's submission in a very quick fashion. So, all right, first up is Crunchy Nut. Crunchy Nut is up. All right, here we go. Get rid of these guides. Yeah, we like this piece. This is very dynamic. It's crazy for a verticality. Like, it really sells the scale of...
Yeah, the setup is really nice. That vertical opening, the action leading the eye down.
Yeah. I would say, though, it has a big problem for having all that vertical space. Jess, do you know what I'm getting at?
Those angles.
Yep, you crop the ankles out. You have all this real estate, like literally nothing going on in the center of the composition, but we somehow don't have enough room for that dude's feet. That, in illustration standards, that's a crime. So, get that up there. That'll fix a lot of things. And, oh, I don't know where my brush is. It's missing. What else would you want to address with something like this, Jess?
Well, one of the things that threw me off about this piece was the plasticness of the giant.
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
The materials and the lighting, even the color choices on that colossal creature, it makes it feel like it's just a piece of washed out plastic. And you have so many warm colors bouncing around, and then that just gets to like just this washed out, there's no temperature shifts. Yeah, like for all of the richness you brought into trying to paint the architecture around, you did nothing like that on the main big figure that's the focal point of the image.
I was going to add to that too. There's a slight lack of clarity with, like, is this part of some structure back there? Is it coming alive off of a structure, or is he like trying to hurdle like a wall, right? And that's his big foot. It's a little unclear on my end, but I think the easiest solution literally just might be to make this an actual wall and make it kind of coming from behind him. That way you can save on all the anatomy and figuring out a lot of that, and it will have less of that awkwardness.
Yeah, because that doesn't really add anything. That leg coming over doesn't actually add anything to the image. And for how dynamic the gestures of the figures in the foreground and the horse and everything is, the gesture of the large colossal creature is kind of missing.
I think that the time of day and the lighting back there is just far too bright, and I think if you go with something a lot darker, not only can you hide a lot of like the weaker painting on the beast or the monster, but you can make it more like kind of fit the lighting in the foreground. So it's like this is almost like kind of two lighting scenarios in one. You got something pretty dark and pretty dramatic in the foreground, and I think that is the way to go. But in the background, you're selling a very sunny and optimistic sort of image. So it's kind of like two different stories. So I would come in, full force and just go with something a lot darker. Like a lot. I guess the easiest way I'll do this, I'm just going to copy paste that and sap out the lightness. Just get it, force it down there.
And that actually is already helping push the eye down to that figure in the foreground, which is a much stronger image.
See, like you can get like a little bit of that light from the clouds and the sky kind of framing, that head,
And another thing that strikes me about this piece is how kind of simple and generic the colossal being feels. I feel like there's a missed opportunity there for some really cool character or creature design, like to make it more interesting. So it's not just like this cut out cardboard
Yeah.
figure. Like there's no attention paid to like the facial features or an expression on the face, or if you're going with a lack of expression, like to really play that up with the headdress to make that really cool or interesting, the collar, the
Yeah,
clothing
the
to make
silhouette
that
is
interesting.
very, very weak in that regard. Which is
Yeah, and like this figure is kind of telling a story, and yet the figure is as bland and vanilla as it could possibly be.
so you start it light, kind of at that main figure, and then gradually go into like these warmer, darker ranges, right? Not only as you go up the wall, but like as you can kind of traverse the beast itself, so you can get warmer shades where there's bounce light. You can bring in hints of more direct light too. I mean, if you wanted to get a nice subtle range of like mid-tones. There's a lot you can do, and that's what this becomes a case of, like missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Which is go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, it's like I can see how much more thought you put into even like the crumbling architecture with the statues attached to it and the engravings, like so much more interesting than the design of the creature.
Like, yeah, just give this something. So I'm just freestyling this. It's like the whole top of it. I'd have like this deep dark color with the atmosphere, kind of coming over it, and those really big striking, shoulders and things like that. Every feature on him is super soft and round, and that diminishes his power or the threat.
He's not intimidating except for how big he is.
So you do that. You tie in some atmosphere. I think it'll work very, very well. So these are all very fixable things, at this stage for you, which is good. But I definitely recommend that minimum another 5 hours to get that to kind of where that needs to go.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool piece.
Hey, bad concept artist. It's a good concept though. Funny.
Yeah, this is not bad at all.
Yeah, see, you got the right mood back there. That's the color. That's the color.
This one is very striking. It like was
one
of the ones that jumped out to us.
It jumps off the page, so you've done your job.
Yeah.
You could even get like a little bit more variety, just starting into the background. You're just getting some of those shapes where some of the
break it up a little bit.
Yeah, just to break up, have a nice little subtle, nothing crazy, but just to help frame the subject. If you can make very good shapes, from some clouds and dissipating way up in the atmosphere, that could help break up. This is a big, right now it's like almost too big of an empty space, so you can add a slight bit of interest by really just adding a little bit more variety with those clouds. Even at the bottom you could make a subtle jump to add like hints of like that yellow, on the horizon if you wanted to, and it would tie it in honestly pretty well to like the warmer colors over here. Something I blended it very poorly, but hopefully you get the idea. I like this composition though. It's definitely one of the stronger ones.
There is something about the top right corner that just keeps commanding so much focus and attention. My eye keeps going over there.
Gotta frame it, right?
And it's not important to the rest of the image or composition. So I feel like diminishing that, even having the glow, like just like taking an airbrush over that glow and knocking it back a little bit. Yeah.
Just calming it down. And again, to reframe that the perspective on that. Yeah, see that there's a lot of very round shapes in there, and similarly to like what we were just saying, I think this can have more impact if there's just bolder use of straighter shapes. Just like angle up one or two things here and there, and that can add impact. See, like the other problem is too, like you lose the entire shape of the skull to the background. They're the same. Add that separation there as well, and do that. See, I'm exaggerating the existing perspective, not perspective, but the shape that you had there. Because right, you have some good tones in there, but we got to keep that so it's separate, and then you could just go, easily enough behind that, and just make that a little lighter, right? A little bit more purple, like whatever.
Just to separate them.
Yep. Just to, maybe even more yellow. Just anything to push that separation. See, just to get that edge. And of course, I made a bad selection, but
I think of the
Most
idea.
of this though is working very well. This is just like grouping and organizing things that are honestly very like way easier than the average person's fixes would be. So you can
Yeah,
just
this is
darken
all
down
just
there.
polishing. Like, how can you push the edges and focal points? And speaking of focal points, I actually I think that the setup of the figures is really interesting, but they almost get lost. Mainly the one on the ground in the circle, which is a really cool setup. This looks really
Yeah,
interesting. Like,
that's
there's really cool story here.
just I didn't even
Um,
notice that.
it looks terrifying, but you don't even notice it until like you're like already like into this picture looking at it for a few minutes. And so I would try and find a way to draw the eye down there. Yeah, frame that figure,
Yep,
maybe
that's
put
gotta get
something
darker.
dark behind them.
Like that. See, like this should be dark. Like positioning of like just like these general elements here could be better because it gets pretty tight. Pretty fast. See, like even if you have to exaggerate the heck out of like a tooth being here, and then moving this guy a little further up, it can really start to help frame all this stuff quite a bit more. So I'd move that guy over, and then, or if you have to make this bigger to make this guy bigger, I would. But either way, like I feel like this guy has got to be bigger because it's such an important. So like one technique, right? You just make him right bigger, kind of along, that axis. Again, maybe moving the tooth over, right?
Yeah, and I would darken the background behind that kneeling figure as well, so that way.
Good call, Chief. Let's do it. See, I like co-critiquers. We got to find a better term than that because co-critiquer is not like a very fancy name.
I'll take what I can get.
Everyday hustling. All right, so that's yeah, darken, not like I just did. That was poor, but
Yeah, like you could still paint. They could still paint all those textures and stuff in,
yeah,
but
just get that guy up there, and then maybe right. Even I'm gonna take just like that area, copy paste, make him bigger, put him like right there, and then I don't know. I don't know what my next move is. I'm just pushing things. Like, I think that's too far. I was gonna say let's see where that tooth lands. Like, yeah, that's a bit far.
yeah, that's
But
not gonna work.
you can make this work though. Like do something kind of like that for like the remainder of those elements. So you just frame that guy with the edge of the mouth.
Yeah, and honestly, simplifying that space, like getting it so his silhouette before was kind of muddy
Yeah.
with where it was overlapping
Silhouette.
all those intersecting shapes on the skull. And if you can simplify around him, it'll actually strengthen the piece.
Get cast shadows too.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that was missing.
Yeah. Not for them, but like the little cronies. Some super tight rendering in this area in general will do a lot. Now, I got one more trick up my sleeve for this one. We're gonna again make an attempt for impact here. So I'm gonna select all this here, which is everything but the background. We're gonna copy paste that, and let's try to recontextualize some of this even further. Let's see like how much we can get away with, just like really bringing it in. Like we kind of compromise the eye up there, but it's like, do we need it? Like I would, and then ultimately what I probably would do is like I do like that skull there, but like I'd also try to frame again this little lower guy by using some dead space in the background, so you just to kind of tighten that up. So I guess these are of course more elaborate fixes, and depending on your layer structure that could be more or less easy or hard, but like I think for me the ideal composition would be something kind of like shape and organization wise, something kind of like that. So you can get like a little bit of light also coming around the tooth. But it's good either way. It's just like, what can we nitpick to push it
Yeah,
to the
like
max?
how could you have pushed this composition and designed it even tighter? But it is a very strong composition to begin with.
It is. Awesome job. I just totally Photoshop art chopped your painting. Hopefully it helps. All right. How do you feel about Axel's here?
I loved the colors. The first thing that struck me is about the interesting color palette and choices with the purples and pinks in the desert. It was very
Yes.
beautiful.
I'm wondering, like, can we even push like certain forms on these purples? The figures, the cloak figures, they do get flat eventually. So I'm like, can we go in some universe? Maybe I'm gonna dare go maybe harder vivid light just to kind of really
Pop it.
pop it. It's a dirty trick, yes, but something like that. Just like on the highest highs, just get some really solid royal purple going on.
I also wonder about the choice of the sky color. To begin with, the sky is extremely empty.
Blue
Like that
and
whole top
empty.
half of the painting is just very, like, there's no negative space. It's all just one big unbroken top half of the painting.
It's true.
And the color choice isn't doing much for the painting either. That like just very primary blue sky. I almost wonder if you pushed it towards twilight colors
Yeah,
that
that's you read
that
my
kind of
mind.
pulled off of the colors of the figures, it could be much more evocative.
That's kind of where I'm leaving, and that's what we've seen as we were kind of screening these beforehand. There's like a lot of good ideas, a lot of good compositions, but the lighting choices often, really seem questionable. It's like, is that the best solution, for your particular idea? Because like obviously, see, just even starting from a very neutral place like that, and then we trace along, see, like the desert line, which is terrible because it's too soft. You gotta break that up with the occasional harder line. Let's not get into that. But oh my god,
Yeah, you got this.
gotta wrangle my sky, which and then you could like really pull in some of like the really deep colors, right, that come from a twilight hour, right, something like that, or maybe actually a little,
Or even some pinkish.
yeah. We're gonna get there. I'm gonna pull that down. Woo.
Yeah.
Like, let's say the light's from that side, right? So pull that really far down. I don't know if overlay is the chosen.
Whoa.
See, I gotta like, right? It's a balancing act, but having a lot of that live in the realm of neutrals is great, and then just bring that light kind of over like that, and then you did with the faces of the house, you can like design some really cool shapes on the dunes, right? So what's a good dune color? I guess like a really deep yellow. Like, yeah, I guess this is actually pretty close, to what I'd go. Just have it be, a little bit dramatic and go back, and then you can finesse out the edges and the forms. And sorry, it's very, you probably hear it, right? Very chaotic. You're right. See, I left that neutral, right? The sky, but you could go back like into those shadow ranges if you wanted to, and just kind of push those deeper, like that. And I think that would add a lot to this drama, right, that we're kind of painting here. What else? What else is sticking out?
You could even go the direction of like going towards a dusk or a twilight. You could even bring in some blues and purples and push like a pink sunset color if you'd wanted to. And again, it depends on what suits your fancy. But I think the other thing that really threw me off is how much the top is not broken up. And so like I'm looking at the way you have these trees. You have these really cool figures off to one side, and then you have on the other half you have these trees. And I wonder, to help unify the image a little bit, if you were to create another tree that was much closer, like just behind these figures, kind of going up off the top of the canvas, like they were walking under another one of these palm trees. That would help break up some of the space at the top of the painting. It would create like a repetition of elements from one side of the image to the other side of the image.
Yeah, like having like a tree go up there, right?
Yeah.
And then have like the occasional palm hang down. And then even like with these though, like they feel like that's only like 3 people high of a palm tree. Palm trees are big. Like at this scale, we're looking like that next to a person like that.
I think that
and that'll help.
Perspective is a little off. Like if you look at the size of the figures in different parts of the image, it feels like the perspective is really exaggerated.
See, like even like into the city, I'd have like a very thin tree, you know, poking out over the buildings. Someone's going to be like, I got palm trees down the road. They're not that big, but these feel, in service of the picture, too small. You know, it's always about the picture. We gotta prioritize. It's like, obviously, I don't have palm trees up my road, but when I paint them like this, and it, you know, the idea, it's about servicing the picture first. And you get green in there. Obviously, I have no green, but, you know, I think, like, visually, it adds a much more interesting, like you said, rhythm, because there's, like, a lot of dead space that's not helping us out.
And speaking of dead space, I would actually chop off the left side of the picture. Like,
we are. That's always my first look.
Because the story is about these figures that literally end at the center line.
I'm going to try to also not do that, but I'm hitting this. I got to hit that with like the right type of light, and I had the wrong brush setting. But you know, something where these really do pop off the page because they seem very important. You know, that's like a quick and dirty way to do it. I definitely wouldn't necessarily go one for what I'm painting here, but the idea is to make these pop. Make the sides and the shapes of these guys pop out. You know, where we got purple for these? Yeah, so purple pinks, right? Like, let's see those colors. And then let's figure out how far can we remove.
We can cut that in, yeah.
Because there's nothing over here adding to what's going on over here. Not like that or like this. Yep.
Yeah, that already
that's
is a
10 times a better image. Yep. Great job. We like the idea.
Yeah. I think this one has a lot of potential. It just needs to be rethought, the composition a little bit, and then just really push the things that you have that are working.
Hey, Albino. This is great.
This one was cool. Yeah.
You got some of the best brushwork and consistency of the whole batch for sure. I might push things just a bit further. No.
I also think that the creature design is really cool, like the tattered wings and the horns and spikes. Like everything just is so well thought out. I think it's mostly a lack of contrast or clarity.
It's also
holds this piece back.
How much do you think it being as monochromatic as it is to its detriment? Because it's very like we have like that shade of brown, a lighter shade of that brown.
Well, I think it's thrown off a little bit by those pops of red that kind of come out of nowhere, and I feel like those pops of red could be more consistently applied throughout the image. And I think even if you keep this extremely desaturated, it doesn't change the need for temperature shifting. So to really like push some of the cool in the, because it looks like the shadows you go warm. Like if I'm looking at that tent and that horse, so you want to push some of the coolness of the light.
I just did the opposite.
No.
I was thinking about that. It's like I think I just might go all in and just do like really warms and then like slightly
cool down the shadows.
Cooler shadows, but you know, I was following that same thought. It's like normally like my instincts tell me to go with a cooler light. Maybe that works for this, but you don't, like you said, you don't have to play as hard to the temperature shifts if you don't want to. But like, see, even coming back there, putting in like a desaturated pinkish purpley blue like on that horizon, see like this, that color will actually work really, really well. And you could actually double back and go over that with a bit of yellow to really make a nice looking neutral color. But it'll feel, in terms of like having a muted palette, it'll feel very rich and dynamic because you're making that color through complementary ones.
Yeah.
See, something kind of like that, and you just got to blend it out, do it a little bit better than I did.
And I think the other thing too is because that those reds are so out of place with the rest of the image, like I feel like they should be more consistently applied. Like I don't know if the red of that wing is like the local color and you have the subsurface scattering of the light coming through it, but then my eye is saying like, well, those reds should be present in other parts of the character of the creature.
Yeah, I made it more red because, like, again, that's what my instinct. But I would try to like get some of those, like you said, some of those colors back into the creature. And then also we have another scenario, as we had mentioned, lots of them this month, just losing the bottom of this element, and we just don't need to. So just get it in there.
I will say there's a little bit of clarity drawing issues towards the bottom. For as well realized as the creature itself is, I feel like the horse is kind of like, the shape of it is kind of like, what is happening here?
He kind of got gravied a bit.
And because the horse looks so strange, it's actually pulling.
Is that half a horse?
It's like, I think it's like twisted.
Twisted.
Like
I get it.
Twisted, like in panic, maybe. But
that's the problem.
Because there's only one horse, because it's so well silhouetted, it's the darkest point on the canvas, and it's a weird pose. It's taking so much attention away from this awesome creature that is so much better drawn and so much more important.
So this is what I'm doing as a bit of a quick fix, and to bring in a little red to the creature. I'm doing like a Justin Gerard sort of nice deep warm shading with some occlusion by just like color burning some reds into like the deepest shadows. And I would start there. For me, that I would say that's a very modest sort of change. And then like if you can get it all working like that, then maybe you can push things, in a few other areas. But just to get some of these deeper areas to pop.
Because as cool as that creature is, because it's so blown out and there's so little contrast, you lose a lot of the cool drawing and creature design.
All right, let's go with what you recommended. And that I'm gonna probably agree with it, but just going with actually like a little bit of I'm making a bunch of layers and crap, but like cooling that off actually, and just neutralizing that out a bit. And maybe not like that, but yeah, I don't think it's a bad move. Oh my god, my Photoshop's doing what it wants. See, even just like a little bit of a modest change like that, I think, yeah, that looks good. And then like underneath. See, like the claws, right? And this whole shape, you can do
be dark.
Yeah, you can do so much.
If you think about how much light, like that bright light hitting the top and like shining through that wing, that's a lot of light. And for there to be no rich shadows on the creature,
yeah, that's my thing.
It kind of breaks the immersion. It needs some rich shadows.
Yeah, I just keep going with that. But otherwise, this is a fantastic piece. Like you can get like double down on this contrast like that. That looks fantastic. I wonder like if you could even fake that more to pull in, a highlight like that. Also
on some of those forward.
Yeah, like can we stretch it even further, because it's the best part of this image.
You might even get some nice rim lighting down the side, by the side closer to the horse. You could get some nice rim lighting down the face.
Well, that's true. Even more of these forms. And the leg, well, see, like that's like that color. You could go full on. You get some lighter in there, and then.
And man, that creature is getting scarier and scarier.
Yeah.
The more it's got that contrast on it.
Yeah, it is. A little bit on the nose, and you just gotta kind of do your best. How about that wing? Do you think that side gets too like?
Yeah, it throws
weak.
me off how asymmetrical it is. I feel like it should. Like I get the pose of
it,
like it's collapsing.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's a way to do that where it doesn't go quite so extreme.
I think there's a better way to do it. Whatever that case is, like having the wing.
Yeah.
Coming down to there, having some nice holes. It's just it's too much as it currently is.
And the other thing that's throwing me off is the foreground. Even before, I mean, I agree it needed to be pulled down, but that one horse and one tent, I feel like when you're looking at the design of those shapes breaking into the top, or breaking up into the image, I think you would be better off to have more than one horse or more than one tent.
Yep.
So that they become a group of things rather than these singular objects that you need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, fantastic job.
Very cool piece.
Davey, how you doing? This is sweet. This is a really technically well done piece again.
Super ambitious.
Yeah, like oh my god. You got super up and close dynamic shots. You've got scale. You have
acting,
distance,
anatomy.
on paper, this is like our textbook definition for what we look for on these things. But that said, I probably have the least amount of fixes for something like this because I think it is, really well done. You've got good play of light and shadow. You've organized the families. It just reads. Even something very realistic, and this is what we try to tell everybody to do, right? Is like you have still super simple shapes, right, throughout the entire piece, which is, again, really to its strength.
I think one of the things that's throwing me off a little bit is the relationship between certain things, like the figures up close, but then we're kind of like jumping. Our eye looks at them first, and then we notice there's this creature back there, but there's nothing really directing our eye back there, and there's kind of like these like separate zones of the image. And I wonder if there's a way that you can use light or composition design, like maybe the way that the sand is curving up that like catches the light and moves our eye up towards this horrible monster coming out of the darkness. Things like that, like a little more visual flow could really strengthen this piece, I think.
Yeah. Because that's big. You have like these little guys, which I did barely notice. Maybe upscaling all of that a little bit could help too. Maybe even with like this guy, make him like
maybe have him so he's actually in the shadow, closer to the monster.
Yeah, he could be the link. Mm-hmm.
And another thing that throws me off about this is materials. I'm noticing that all of the figures look like they're kind of made out of clay. They're a little plasticky, and like the specular highlights are very specular. And especially like when you're looking at the figure, like the closest one and the one, the next closest one, like those are like up front and center. So you really want to take your time. Like I'm looking, I see a lot of like unfinished brushwork in the hands, like some unresolved things with like the way the knees are laying on the sand, things like that really hold the piece back because like it's so in our face, this figure, that you really want to make sure that you do a really good job with the brushwork of this like center focus.
What's that commander in the Star Wars movies after like Darth Vader rips him a new butt? He's just like, we must double our efforts. That's what's running through my head on that. Just gotta amp that up a little. So you get a nice shadow. Bring that into shadow too, like his knees, but you get him maybe like a couple other figures, as much as you probably hate anyone to say that at this point, but just to get that right, we that's what we talked about, is like getting the flow. Maybe like a group of figures. Or maybe
one of the claws, like maybe one of the arms like fits through.
See, like right here
towards him.
That's a great idea. See, Jess is full of great ideas. That's why I got you on, right? Like have a big old claw coming out, ripping this dude's chain, like some kind of play on that, I think, is the ultimately best solution. That's a strong hand. Yeah, let's ignore my drawing for that part, but that's what I would do. Like I said, add the eyes, get that all in there. And then some of the shapes, again, there's going to be anatomy things this close. The overall rendering is actually pretty good in the head, which is great. But yeah, like this, when I see
the arms and hands get kind of rubbery.
Ethan Becker would not approve of this. Those who don't watch his channel, everyone watches his channel, but you do see, right? It's just like he's got like a spaghetti loop arm. It's like a really weak shape. I would try to fix that. I think the girl here is like much better. Like once you can get touch up a little bit of the brushwork in there, and then like fix that arm and finish like painting a little bit of like the hands and stuff. But like here is like great if you can get like the rest of that working as good as there, and then get like a a little bit more of a dynamic shape, like in the foot and stuff. Again, it's like just like way too many softer kind of curves, and that's kind of what's happening with that arm. It's like all soft. It's all ellipses. Get rid of some of those ellipses, and I think it's going to be a lot better for it.
And again, like going back to the materials, like you did a good job with the blindfold going across his eyes. That actually looks like cloth. But if I look at any of the other cloth in the painting, it looks like it's made out of the same material that their skin is made out of, which is the same material their hair is made out of. So material studies could be very useful, so you can start to delineate those different types of surfaces and how they reflect light.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the metal is another. It looks like it's made out of the same material.
Little metal. All right. Mikadel.
This one was really cool.
Yeah, this is very different than a lot of the pieces, and I think it's really well executed on a technical scale, and it has a very unique voice, which is great.
I really like. I loved the use of the abstract shapes with the smoke coming out of windows, creating the negative shape that looks like fire. I love the like dark ribbon of smoke cutting in, bringing your eye right where it's supposed to go, and breaking up the top of the canvas. Like very beautifully designed composition. I really really like that.
Yeah, I honestly think because it's so consistently well done, most of the shapes are working so well. I would probably say, if anything, like with that, is like maybe get like a little bit more, contrast under here, where these just general shadow shapes of the creature are. Like this whole bit, like everything that's connected to that shadow shape, I would add more contrast. Only because the background almost becomes like way more contrast. Has way more contrast than this main important part. Now that will take, in reality, right, a bit more delicacy to really adjust, but like the quick and dirty of it, is just to kind of get that a little bit further. And I think
which actually helps something that was throwing me off a little bit, that yellow color of the disrupted sand under its feet was throwing me off a little bit because it's so singular. It's drawing like attention to itself when there's not really a need for it to have that much attention. If that yellow had been repeated throughout the image, it wouldn't be so important. But because that yellow is like its own thing, I keep looking at that like, why is this important? And it's distracting. So
blend that out, and then reuse parts of that somewhere else. And the only thing I would do, again, with the shape of, or like the silhouette in general of the creature, that's what most creature design boils down to at its basic level, is the silhouette. Like for me, like that's slightly too weak. I would try to do something more with the head personally.
Make it a little more interesting.
Like look up some kind of creature, some kind of iguana, mastodon thing, just like it just needs like a little something more.
I will say I love the blindfold reins, though. That is an interesting touch. That's cool.
And this shape here, like if that's the knee, it almost makes it seem like he's too big for like this seat and chalice. Like I don't know, maybe just making the figure like slightly smaller so he fits on here better, or it makes the creature feel bigger itself. Either or, but like I don't know, it's like this shape and the way it makes it look like he's just kind of squeezed into this like this little. Maybe that's what you're going for, but I don't know. For me, that jumps out. But otherwise, I think I wouldn't touch anything. This is super good.
Yeah. This is a very polished
brush sauce seal of approval.
It's beautiful. I love it.
It is. I need like a sound effect to chime when we can issue those. Oh my god, we can go left or right, because like it's technically okay. We're gonna go with this Strander.
This one is gorgeous. This one immediately was just like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, you're channeling some great Chris Rana out of this. I like it.
And it is so solid. It's like this could just leave it alone. It'll be a great piece. But there's some little things you could do, I think, that could improve it. I think one of the things that's throwing me off a little bit is where the tail ends. I almost want to see the tail like curve up into the obelisk, or the tail to curve out over the horizon a little bit. It's kind of like tangenting with where the obelisk edge is. It's just a little bit of like just a minor change that can just add to the drawing a little bit.
That would be, like getting it. Oh my god, I'm gonna try not to like smear this thing with like color, but like having that flow
just a little
that way. Tuck that. It's a tail tucker. Tucks that tail over there, and then out, and, over there, something like that. I think will add just a little bit more. This brush stroke back there is, I think, a little too heavy-handed. It becomes like a little much for that area, because you could just see it, and it's not like a big deal. None of this is a big deal.
Nothing we're saying
at this level, but it's like I can just see like one too many of the same smudges, or however you want to call it. But I would try to just get in there and break some of that up. Like I'm literally bringing in like a little bit of yellows and oranges. Again, that twilight hour, I would try to jack up the subtlety, these color shifts on that horizon, which is yellows and greens, maybe little bits of purples, all those fun dandy colors. But I would add a little bit more into back there. I still maybe go, I'm gonna grab the airbrush for now.
Yeah, I would be using an airbrush just to soften it.
Not that one.
It's a bit bright.
But just like, gently really try to push that color and then blend that, very, very carefully, or use a few different brushes. Then you can have like these sharper, which I don't think I've edited it, but like you could get for reels some more fire shapes or deeper fire bits, like really get those things to pop. I think maybe a little more in the yellow range, something kind of like that. They just feel like a little too soft and weak occasionally. So you just bring in the yellow.
Or like down towards where they're crashing.
Yeah, and then tail it off like you were.
I think one of the things that could be pushed a little bit is just a little bit of like more warmth in the light. Like we're seeing these like beautiful oranges, against the purple, but then when we get to the main figure in the obelisk, it becomes very kind of just this washed out, neutral light. And I wonder if you couldn't get a little bit more of those oranges reflected in the fur or the mask, especially because the mask almost looks like it just has like white highlights.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to show a bit of the Chris Ron reference. If you can get like a gentle glow going on that, you got like a really mean recipe for a great image. See, it's like something kind of like that. Like a little bit of subtlety, a little bit of glow to that. Keep just the ground cool and dark, and it'll be awesome. All right, so.
And I really love it too. Another thing is like how you've designed kind of the dunes at the very bottom of the canvas to push the eye up towards the figure. Is a very nice use of like visual flow and using the environment.
Yeah, like just getting like a hint of that. It might take a little bit of experimenting with, like the blending modes. Like
or even just picking a few spots that you want and just going in and painting it, carefully by hand. You might get
nothing wrong with by doing it by hand. But yeah, and then last thing would be maybe like a bit of a crop too, like make this creature feel it's like a little bit too far. But if you kind of go like that, it just makes it makes it feel a lot bigger, which is great. All right, Nick Condra. This is a super fun idea. I like this.
Yeah.
You got like these ramshackle ruins. Again, I think like once you go beyond this, the main structure here, the colors start to break it up almost too much. Like you go from like super deep, hot warms, straight to these
it starts getting very checkerboardy.
Yeah. I wonder if like just flipping this. Like it reads, which is great, but it's almost like this is the extreme, for like what you'd probably want to hit for a palette like this. I think just more yellows, more subtle blues, even integrating some purples. I think that might be like the best way to go. So
yeah,
just
it feels,
like getting these
it feels
colors
like it
to
gets
mix.
like kind of blown out. Like the lights just go so light, the colors go so many different directions.
So like I don't know. I'm gonna build like a gradient up top, like from scratch, that I think would work, pretty well. So like again, starting with that, then going into like some warmer, see kind of purples, like that, and then maybe adding in, like a bit of that yellow, on top of that soft light. I'm just gonna. Yeah, see, like particularly like your neutrals around here should look a little more like that, I would say, and then you could just pull that back, to and from, to and fro as much as you want to really kind of push things. See, I'm getting too light with it, so I had to like go deeper and then like a little warmer if you want to see get that nice natural gradation for a sky like this. So again, you could just select. I don't even think you need to like. This is fine, like this whole shape, right? And then let me see if there's got to be like a quick and dirty way to get this right. Oh my god. Quick selection. Yeah. Here we go. Just pull everything but like the background, right? Like that. That. Okay. So we got the point, right? We got like most of these, and then even grab your existing dunes, right? We can come back into there and then just start, just trying to integrate that all, into the environment, at least like a little bit, and then you can just delete, where you already have a lot of these existing, elements, just to get that all, to blend really well.
It already looks stronger as far as just like the value grouping and the mood of it.
Yeah, it's just now you can erase like a lot of these pieces and get it back there.
And I would even like having that weird shadow cut across the base of it that's tangenting with the dune. I would bring that light all the way down because you already have
this
it on
one
the
here.
Yeah, but like see how the tower has like that weird cut and then it gets into shadow. Like if you just brought those golden lights all the way down to the ground, so it looked like that whole side was kind of like illuminated.
Yeah, I think that's what it needs. I actually assumed it did, and when I was erasing and it stopped there, I was like, oh, I guess. But yeah, like going like all the way, with that, and then bring in these nice neutral lights, kind of like that into the base, and then you can erase out and back, from there. But like, yeah, just the other colors
you actually
I think
did the
were too
opposite
much.
of what I was thinking.
Well, you were gonna go darker,
light in the foreground and darker in the background, but either
yeah,
way, as long as it's separating it.
Yeah, I'm just building that up. You could go darker. You could, but I'm just trying to make that color work a little better. Like I get that's very purple. You don't have to go like that far, but I wouldn't. And you could even use hue saturation, see if there's like a slightly different take on the background. Ignore what's happening in the tower, But like I think there's a lot of solutions for this, which is great. I just wouldn't go like super bright, blown out. It's blown out because like a normal sky anyway, you're gonna probably see a lot of colors in like that range. If you want it a little more subtle, you could do a lot of mixing, and that's what's not happening here. It's too airbrushy, which is causing it to lose a lot of that nice luster that you can put into a sky. So even going something more like that, it's really starting to work. And then you could add, like a hint of green into your sky, and that will tie it really well into your landscape. And then just bring in some of those colors right into the. See, like if you want to go like these brighter, optimistic, there's a way to pull it off. So it's just the way it just you had it just needs a bit more tweaking.
Mm-hmm.
And bring in, see, like I'm mixing colors here, and that's what it looked like you weren't doing enough of. It's like the colors were too one-dimensional and they were just getting really blown out. But you can have a lot of beautiful, subtlety out of these ranges for this idea. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's a very cool image.
I will say that I'm having a little trouble with the foreground.
It needs a bit more. It's under-rendered for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like the figures get so small, and then like this weird shape that's cutting in, this broken column coming in from the side. I feel like that is commanding a lot of attention that isn't helping the image.
I didn't consider that, but now that you did, I wholeheartedly agree.
I'm sorry.
I was like, yeah, I could buy. I'm a big ruins type of fella. I'll buy into that. But is it the best solution? I don't know, because like you said,
the tall one, the tall one's a little distracting. But I feel like the one on the other side is even more distracting because it's such a strange shape.
Yeah. Well, let's look at that. You said the same thing, right? And then we go two different ways. So that's what's great because we're gonna attack this. I was ready to call this one all set, but
sorry.
No, you're right. Like let's adjust that. Maybe even getting that a little further to make. At this point, just make it a center composition. But yeah, like maybe like that's just a bit much, like Jess said. Just getting that like a little less, like
Or maybe not having that like bill, like duck bill coming off of the
yeah,
column.
that's like one piece too many.
Yeah.
Like it just make it like an old thing, and then you can figure out how to, and then the characters like
Yeah, and it feels like you're trying to frame them like by just putting a light in the middle of like a shadowed valley, which didn't work. So, yeah, finding other ways to frame them and make them bigger definitely helps.
well, yeah, but yeah, that's it. Just like some moving and retooling of things. There we go. I like that a lot.
That looks way better.
Awesome work.
Cool piece.
Cool pieces. Yeah. All right. So what's next? Socken.
This one was fun.
Yeah, I like this. This is super cool. It's very dynamic. The composition's really good. I think just even pushing contrast in certain areas, just to adjust some of the values a bit more. I would like for example this is great, but it's also like the same value as some of the elements around it. So I just push things just like a little bit further.
Just because, we also have that dark shape of the bird, and then nothing else has that darkness to it,
like
so nothing else
motion
feels
blur.
quite real. That helps a lot already.
Motion blur on that.
And there's something about that foot in the foreground that ends up being very distracting to me. I keep looking at it, and it actually took me a second to figure out that it was the foot. And I don't know if it's like a drawing thing or just a value thing. But for
I
some
was
reason,
looking at it, but I hadn't
didn't connect it to the bird at first.
I did. I am, but I am also too distracted by it. Maybe just like, does this make it better or worse if I like just kind of darken it and group it more so with the actual bird?
Maybe it helps. Part of me wonders, does it even need to be as big of a thing as it is? Like, if it was flat on the ground, as opposed to
okay, so like you're saying
up.
like get the talon.
Yeah, like maybe it's just too interesting. It's too much of its own thing, and it's distracting from what's actually interesting, which is this giant bird and this figure with her dogs running up to the bird.
I think that's a good conclusion. Jessica, the art doctor. I concur. Right, just get that a little further down, rein it in. Yeah, like some kind of shape combination, right, like that, where it's just like brought back a bit.
Like we know it's there. We know he's got his foot on the ground, but it's not like, hey, look at this awesome foot sticking up.
I'd have a problem like if I were to try to do a creature like this in a scene like this. I'd be trying to like figure out what kind of sound that makes the entire time, and I'd be just like gnawing at my screen for like 3 hours straight, and it would get ugly.
Oh, I want to see that. Just
do
make
you
a video
think,
of that.
Would you go lighter on the head and darker behind it?
I don't know. I actually kind of like the way that the dark pops forward and the light recedes, especially even with like the legs and stuff going lighter. But I do feel like I want more in the face. I want like just a little bit more like detail or highlight or.
See, like this whole head.
I mean, it's really cool, and it looks like it's like 95% there. But I feel like my brain is like just wants something more, just a little more.
Your brain is so damn greedy sometimes.
It's true. It's true.
At those standards. All right, let's see. Yeah, guys, we just had. That's why this is also so late, just because I forgot to mention it prior. But Adam is not with us purely just for scheduling difficulties, as we are having more and more of these days.
Yeah, it's hard. There's so much going on.
Yeah, it's mostly on my end and my kids, and Adam's very limited availability. Well, he's super consistent, which is great, but his consistency does not align with my availability, which is like the problem. Yes, okay, let's go a little darker, right, like you said, and then at the light, the highlights get even lighter.
A little bit of like glint in that eye.
Yeah,
get something.
that. Oh yeah, get the like you get like those pinks. Like you can really ham up that texture, like getting some of those highlights to really kind of pop, in there. Just this isn't the right
a little
brush.
Crunchier.
I love a crunchy texture. Yeah, look at the slobber all coming out of this. This is great.
And in a similar vein, I want to see a little more with that figure running up. A little more contrast, like a little more attention. Like there's something really interesting there, and it almost gets relegated to like just disappearing into the landscape.
Yeah.
And I feel like just finding ways to like make her pop a little bit more. And she's holding like a baby. Oh
Oh
wow.
God, that's that.
This is a cool painting.
I am fearing for that child right now.
Yeah. Like
That's
like I
stock.
feel
That's
like there's
stock eight
so much
fence.
there. It's such an interesting setup. Like I just want to see it pushed a little bit more, like so we could actually see that's what's happening.
Okay, we got the scale of this. There's no selling that short, but like, how can we get this?
I,
In. I mean, look at this. This thing's got a lot going on though, because it's got like
yeah,
the
I'm afraid.
dogs and the coyotes. It's got the baby and this creature. It's like so much good going on. Can we like bring that in at all to help this emphasis? And then you could like cut your wings out and bring them down into that frame, but
And then
there's some tough calls
push the
to be made
contrast
here.
around the girl, like maybe push the light a little bit more behind her, push some shadows in that shield.
Yeah. When in doubt, color dodge. Let's just get that out there, right? So we're gonna do that. See, like, let's see how far you can go with that, right? But like really
Yeah.
getting either that or like again the light on the figure, right? And then cooling off, right? This whole section. So I'm gonna ignore some of what I just did, but just to like again using contrast to frame your figure there. So you gotta just take that down, not go too far with it, right? Something like that, and then you can erase where the figure is. That'll help the light on the dark, like a little bit, and then you just
Yeah.
gotta blend something like that.
And it's breaking up that shape a little bit too, which is nice.
Yeah, there's things you can be done. I don't think any of these decisions are going to be easy to make because, again, you have some really cool parts, but this is also so important. Like, can we cut the figure out and just make it bigger? Right? There's a lot of ways through this, but hopefully we've brought something to your attention that'll, trigger a light bulb because this is like so close to just being like top tier
Yeah, it
in
just
that,
needs
in
like
that regard.
some tweaks, some
Let's
balance.
talk about felon art here. This is crazy cool, by the way.
I love this one. It like automatically like made me think of like a 2001 Space Odyssey with the monkeys, except like huge giant monkeys, which I really liked.
I
I'm
as
like
much
I'm looking for an obelisk in here.
I know, and too like as much as I dig a lot of these warm tones. I wonder if like taking like a little bit of yellow out of like this section,
Yep.
just to like whether it's just saturation wise or just shifting that hue slightly or bringing in a little bit
I
of
would actually go with color balance because then you can kind of push the temperature shifts and have it be slightly less monochromatic.
all right, yeah, let's do the whole painting. It's after what I just did. I'll do like auto, right? Like auto. Oh my god, no, don't do that. What were you thinking?
Go to color balance, adjustments,
Oh, yes.
color balance, yeah. And then you go to shadows or highlights. I usually start
Or
with shadows though. And then depending which direction you want to go, if you want them to go
Yeah.
cool, you can push it into the cyans and blues. And then the highlights, you'd kind of go the opposite direction. And you can start separating those out so they stop being
and
so.
then just blend what I previously did because that'll help. That's going to really push the separation, and then you can just gingerly, get in behind those characters just to create like a little bit of difference. I think will help make that as slight as you want. But this is really good. A really interesting. Drama and stuff going on here. Like maybe see again, the little shapes are a little too soft for me. Maybe I'm like a hard shape whore. Is that a thing? But like it seems like for such dynamic, visceral, dangerous creatures, there should be a little bit more of an edge to them.
And I hate to say this, but I feel like there's three different like stories here. We've got these like really interesting
hate to
smaller
say
monkeys that are
this.
silhouetted and just have like fantastic gestures. And I feel like
All right.
that's probably the best painted part of the image is where those smaller monkeys are. Then we have these colossal monkeys. And then we have this very high contrast, sharp edged figure hiding behind these pyramid shapes. And it feels like three different paintings in a way, like three different stories
All right.
happening. And I know it like doesn't fit as well with the challenge, but honestly, I would just take the figure out. Like
I
the
was gonna
figure.
pause right there. I was gonna say which one of these elements, would you remove? And you just answered the same thing I was gonna ask, and honestly, that's the same thing I also would remove. I agree.
Like I feel like he's just like this like add-on distraction from a really cool painting.
Yeah, it's too much. Like that could be its own. If you like this idea, make it like a sequential series, and just do it. But like you have this, you have those. It just doesn't need this. I think at the end of the day, it's not necessarily becoming about this, and this starts to compete with like this very beautiful idea, that you have going on over here. And luckily too for you, this is like an insanely easy fix.
Yep,
Like look
just
what we
like
just
that
did.
is a way better
Dirty
painting.
deed. Like, because you could still use the light as a compositional tool to lead, that viewer's eye in and around some of
Yep.
these areas. Like, that can still be, and still should be, a thing. Again, if you get, like, some harder edges, you're getting a little really goopy and tender, with some of these
And I
marks.
feel like you're also running into the problem where like the figure, like everything on the top half of the canvas is too soft. Then you've got this really nice sweet spot right in the middle where those smaller
Yep,
monkeys
super
are.
sweet.
And then you've got this like really sharp hard edge thing on the bottom left. And so you kind of want to, I think, balance it, bring those really hard, overly blown out lights, bring those down, bring the contrast down, and then do the opposite on the top of the canvas, and hopefully it'll all become more consistent together.
You're saying, like, oh, yeah, like, jack up the contrast on the apes, lower
Yep.
that a little bit more, just get, like, a little more subtlety right out of that. I'm trying to keep up with
Sorry.
all of your acknowledgments, which are great.
Spitting things at you.
See, like, adding greens and blues, and you can get some really great colors. I don't know if I'm going like a little too far there, but again, you can paint over the cooler colors and it'll still even out like really, really well, and then get something
it's a cool,
something like
cool
that,
gradation.
and then like kind of double up, right? Like you were saying on the how far can you push the highlights on the head sort of conversation that might head into. That doesn't look great. Let me make a new layer. Like, I guess like more vibrant yellows, right? Something like that. Maybe trial and error. Yeah, something like that where you just get a nice, at least in the light, really see. Find whatever brush Dave Raposa uses for squiggly hair in the light. I think Jamie Jones must have it, but yeah, something kind of like this brush is not the best one for it, but you need to get. I used to have it. I don't know where this brush is at the moment. It's in the drawer of brushes that are, but like where that light hits, like that's where. And maybe put this brush on screen mode. You can push that light into there, and then just it just needs the right amount of blending and kind of
maybe
fine
like
tuning.
a more soft version of that, but like to have the light come down the arm and hand, kind of leading the eye back into that central space where the tiny monkeys are.
Tiny monkeys.
Well, I guess they would be normal size.
Not everybody says that every day. They're little tiny monkeys. Yeah, I agree. Just kind of pushing all of these. See, like you can get that on the head, maybe the edge of the nose, and like you said, like right, follow the form, right, and go to the hand.
Yeah.
And that's gonna add. Like I'd even go deep orange, like up in, or not, a little more like this color, like up under the brows and stuff. Like you can really.
You could really like go in and paint that. Like put some beautiful color choices in, like you did in that central area.
This is great though. I love this piece. So,
Yeah, this is a very fun piece and spooky. And
That's
then
so spooky.
the same thing would be said about like the hand on the other monkey that's getting closer to the smaller monkeys. Like having some light hit the knuckles of that hand as it like comes down into that space.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd get like a little bit more there. I agree. Okay, so my last little, I think, like this is clearly like my mind wants to put this there. Do you think it needs it? Like,
Yeah, I would put a little more contrast in there because that is just such a cool area.
just go all in.
Oh, put a little fire.
That's what I was saying. Like it
I like
seems
it.
like there naturally is a fire here, but it's all smoking.
Yeah, that is cool. And it puts story back into it without the guy hiding behind the rock.
So you just push that.
And then like little shadows coming off the backs of the
Yep.
monkeys.
The more subtle you can really do this, but also kind of do these little elements for impact, like the greater this piece. See, like I'm very carefully trying to like push those out and away. And
Yeah.
kind of coming down and out. But this is great.
This is a fun piece. I love this one.
All right, so we've got our favorite and our runner-up on this one. Although I could go so many different ways on these choices, but we were in agreement pretty much instantly with this, so
Yep.
we do have that.
It sucks to only have one runner-up because there were so many cool pieces here, but yeah, we pretty much both agreed right off the bat.
So I think our first pick is going to be Strangers, right? Really good.
Yep.
Really good. We love that. It's
This
gonna
was
make
the winning piece.
probably like a beautiful thumbnail for this video that you clicked on.
And it
then
was
we have,
also just so well rendered. Like it was so
Yep.
polished, so finished, like just a beautiful job painting it.
and Mikadell's was our runner-up.
Yeah.
It's super unique. It's very classy. It's got a very timeless sort of appeal to it. It's also very different, which is, but it's on point. It's on theme.
It has its own voice. The shape design was very interesting. Just the concept of it was very well executed. There's a lot of little tiny details that really add to this piece that just made it very strong. And both of these have a very consistent level of finish as well.
Yes, they do. Which is always a benefit. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this. I'll get into some of the quick tips on the remainder pieces, and then break into the whatever the next challenge is going to be. Haven't decided yet. So thank you, Jess, for joining me on this part.
Always a pleasure.
How long was that? All right, and now for the rest.
Oh, like an hour,
of the
10,
15.
15.
That's normal.
So, 3D Berserk, we had this one on the line.
So we can't blame
the entire.
can't blame Adam for running up
line.
our time chatting. Not for like any particular reason. It's technically well, executed. Really solid drawing, construction. It's got a good kind of flow to it. Jessica's kind of problem was that these guys, like, it's not exactly 100% clear, from an illustration perspective. Like, these guys are kind of raiding. That's how I read it. But then it's like nobody here has got armament. There's like no guns. It doesn't look like they're defending it. It looks like they're all kind of there bored, looking at these guys about to come kind of kill and destroy their village. But again, that part of the message just feels overall fairly diluted. I'd also consider, like, if you got like blues and reds in here, which is nice, like maybe consider giving some of the domes or like some kind of color, a little accent somewhere in there. Maybe it's a different material just to kind of spice things up. But again, for a dramatic scene like this, we both recommended that you should, that same comment we give to many of the entries, probably a little darker, a little more dramatic, and maybe with an angle slightly lower would have helped sell this, impactful scene quite a bit more. Hey, Aldelka. Yeah, very, very cool image. This is just, it's got a cool idea. I actually like that it's all kind of lined up. Plenty of times in the past, I'm like, you always kind of stagnate your primary elements and stuff like that. But, I think this really does work as a central image. Again, it's just really flat in the rest of the delivery. There's a lot of, like, little shapes like this in here and stuff that I think just doesn't add to it. I think you could remove a lot of that and then, you know, get it out of this very kind of flat monochromatic color scheme. And I think really for me that's really what holds it back. And that's when I objectively look at any kind of image on any platform, ArtStation, Instagram, for me personally, it's like, how is that going to jump out at the page for me? And most of the time people either do it with a really sweet composition or with well executed color and light. And I think it's the color and light in this that just absolutely you know, could be improved the most. But I like the creature design. I like the posing of the horse and the rider. It just really does lack that impact and that drama. Again, words I'm going to be using quite a lot here. Hey, this is cool. You have some really tight, you know, rendering going on here. You have, you know, some really cool designs going on. This is kind of cool. It's like you got this little interesting story going down, and I'm buying into it. I guess for me too, for the nothing, you know, too wrong with the composition. It feels like there needs to, it's missing some kind of component, some element to help like tie all these threads together. Like, what's the relationship between this guy and this guy, or the relationship between him and them, and like, you know, there should be like something in this area. Like, this is nice. I get this symbol, but again, maybe pushing a little bit more like deeper shadows into here, adding you know, some warmer bounce lights, kind of going deeper oranges. I think just like getting that color a little less flat and matte surface. Everything feels like it has a very kind of matte surface. You have a little bit of glow and orange on the, like, it seems like a gold, and I think that's like one of the strongest aspects about it. But overall, very good. Bad advice. Alright, so our thing with this was like a really cool, challenging image, but the anatomy in here, well, you know, I'll just talk about all kinds of things. That's not working. The pose and the arms itself, they're missing quite a lot. They feel like you're going for realism, but it just ends up hitting that uncanny valley because it doesn't quite reach it. It's a combination of the shapes, some of the structure in there. Maybe it's the fact that he's just like looking right at the thing's crotch. It's a little tougher of a sell, but you know, and then again cropping out the ankles. So I think like just pushing a few things around, really double downing on the anatomy, and then fine tuning the shapes of color and light could really like impact it. Like, see, like even like the shape of like his big old, you know, gown thing here. It's not really coming together yet. That it's that I think you're aiming to sell. Because this is good. I like where this is heading. This seems to me like it's a nice start to, you know, a fantastic image. And I think what I'd continue to do with this is I love this orange and this warm glow, but I'd also double down, like getting some deeper contrast in there and to group your different shapes of shadow. Like, you're starting to do that, but not going all the way with it, not desaturating them at all, not adding a little bit of variety in them. And then the background is just too soft and a little too messy. Keep going with this, you know, work on that anatomy. It's still like a little fugly in places. But overall, I think it's gonna get there. You're gonna get there with images like this. It just needs a little bit more time. All right. Hey, Cypher. Yeah, really cool image. I like all the referencing, all the poses. This is drawn, you know, really, really well. And I think the composition for the most part's working. I do kind of question a little bit of like, does it need this? Does it need this? It's got like a bunch of weird. I would try to simplify everything back there. I like what's going on in the front, and I'd continue to push that. This white starts to overtake things. It's a little much. You could have some more details on here into here, and then across all the ruins. But yeah, I just keep going with it, and I think it's going to work out really, really well. Hi, is this Ilesani? Sorry, I'm going to butcher your name. This is a beautiful, you know, illustration. I would recommend getting a few harder shapes in there, as I did in some of the main critiques. Like, a lot of these feel very kind of soft and elliptical to a fault. So I just toss in a nice little sharper edge here and there. The hands feel a bit stiff. I tried to like act that out, you know, a little visually to get a little bit more like depth in there. They were just like too robotically just straight out. There should be more pivoting and turning, I think, and I think that could help that out, just a bit. But yeah, it's very interesting. I'd maybe doing, I even for like a bright light, like it's not bad. I recommend probably, like, I'm not going to say go something insanely dramatic, but you could do a little bit more with the shapes of the shadows in this, for sure. Hello, Isaiah, right? Is that right? Yeah, this is cool. This is super dynamic, a very challenging sort of piece to pull off, and I think it just kind of misses that mark in too many ways, because you can start to see too many of the seams. Like, okay, like this is like 3D photo. This stuff is kind of like 3D, but it's like kind of painted over, but not, enough. It's got like weird edge, fringing kind of problems all over the place. A lot of this is like white on, or let's just group it by values, right? It's like light on light on light on light. Like, I think, like, even as like a massive light area, to kind of create a little separation on that, I think could definitely help. I do think it kind of feels like it's sucking things up, but the teeth, that they get too much lost. It's too soft in there. Like, this is just an ellipse. Like, I'd have like a lot of like shapes really extruding out, for a lot of those, and then really jack up the color in some of these. A lot of it just gets washed out and lost. Again, it's a super ambitious idea, and as the things go like this, the more ambitious it is, like the more difficult it really is to turn off. But I think you got the camera angle, which a lot of people were struggling with. It sells that action. It's just the a lot of the lighting and execution still needs to kind of get there. All right. Hey, Kate, this is stunning. This is really great. I think, structurally speaking, from a drawing standpoint, this is better than most of the entries for sure. I think it's just not sure what it wants to do identity-wise with how it's being painted, because for me the painting and the color treatment of your actual drawing weighs it down substantially. Which is fine, this is something you could just keep drawing and you could keep painting and to improve on that. Or you could just take the original drawing from this, which I assume you must have, and just try different ways of painting it, and following different strategies and stuff. But yeah, I love the idea. I love the drawing of it. It's just the color and the painting didn't, I think definitely could be worked and rethought. Lorik, how are you doing? Yeah, this is a very cool idea. It's got like a lot of movement in it, which is good. Structurally speaking, though, it's all over the place, and it has too rough of a level of finish, I'd say. I think you try to clean that up. See, it's like there's just like lines and marks all over it. Just like, if I had to sum this cool idea up though with one word, it would just be messy. I think you just got to tighten things up, simplify some parts, double down on the detail in others, and just get back to that core structure. Hey Nenex, how you doing? Yeah, this is a cool idea. I like this. There's some drawing things I'd consider, like sometimes like the camel's heads feel too small. Sometimes the walking just feels really wonky on them. And then again, it's trying to do form, it's trying to do line, and you're trying to do mass with light and shadow. Usually, a lot of people would recommend you go for a dominance of line with an accent of form or mass, or do the other, but like having a visual, hierarchy, in regards to that. But it's just like the line drawing itself isn't strong enough to kind of keep there. The painting isn't. In terms of like those three categories, none of them are like pushed far enough to like take that dominant sort of role in terms of the visual hierarchy. And it's just like, I think at this point for you, unless you really double down on the line art effort, just paint it out and focus on the volume, the form of the objects, just getting in there painting for painting with light. And then really focus on the shapes of light and shadow. All right? And I think that could definitely help. Nico, this is dramatic. I love the colors. But for a challenge, it's nothing. It's a color rough. It needs many hours of painting and rendering, I think, to kind of get up to that level. Also, some of the rib cage stuff feels like it's like a little too wide, or maybe like the hips are too small. There's some like proportional things, but I love the idea, and I think if this were finished, it would look fantastic. It absolutely would. So I hope you get around to finishing it sometime. Niels, how you doing? Yeah, this is again falling into that category where it feels like it needs a lot of time to kind of finish it, to really fine tune the light, getting in there, doing the materials, much smaller, tighter strokes on some of the more important areas, and then like really getting into the drawing of these. A large part of this is empty and devoid of any kind of information, so you'll want to do something with this space since it's almost like a third or more of the image. You want to add to that picture here. Paul, how are you doing? So this is interesting. This is super cute and whimsy, and I wouldn't fault it. I wouldn't fault it for that. I think this is super cool and creative. So it's just what would I do differently? I maybe work on some of the materials and forms in there. It's getting there. It's got like a little bit of a chalky or muddy feel to it in parts. Like I don't know if I maybe like soften like that line in some instances, or add little bits here and there, getting like a little better anatomy on the turtle. It feels a little out of proportion in places, but again, I generally like it. Pencil, how you doing? Yeah, same as a lot of these entries that are kind of falling into these categories. This needs structure. This needs value structure. So really deciding a bit more what's in light and shadow, separate those between light and dark values and warm and cooler sort of temperatures, and then you can really double down. But this feels like maybe like just focusing on, I think it's like too big for its own good. I'd upscale lots of these things here to make them bigger, closer, send stuff further in the background. This is kind of getting emphasized because it's lighter and a little bit tighter and dark, but it's getting the whole thing again. It's just like the perspective is a little bit questionable, and it's muddy. It's the brush. You need some hard, firm edges in there to start designing your shapes. Rah, this is cool. I like this. Yeah, I think it's the painting on this. I think the drawing is fine, for what it is. It's really cool. It's very dynamic, but I think, it's how the color and the light are handled. I think I would continue to practice. A lot of things just get blown out, far too much, and you're losing a lot of that color depth that you could definitely get in there to really add a lot of subtlety and richness to this. Hey, Scarlett. So this is super cool. Again, I would say like get these guys in the shot. Like you have a massive canvas here. I don't think there's a need to really crop out everybody's ankles. Again, it was a major theme this particular month where everyone's just cropping ankles out. But I'd get that in there, and then decide what you want to do with the background. The background looks like complete afterthought, not intentionally part of the picture itself. But on a professional standard, that's what every part of the picture needs to be planned and accounted for, and should not be left as to like random or chance. And I think you do that, and then start to adjust some of the shapes and the face. Again, it's dreading, like it wants to be terrifying, but how soft and how round things are, trying to like, it's cute gone bad in a sense. It's got kind of mixed vibes in that regard. So again, it's something I'd maybe consider. It has. All right, so yeah, again, this is a super cool idea. I think the lighting is getting there. I think you got to warm up and lighten parts of that, and then double down on like what this is doing and lighting in there, and then just again cleaning up. As you know, like it's very rough, particularly in the foreground. And so I think 6 hours, maybe 10, depending on your speed, just getting in there, refining all this, it would look fantastic. Because the composition itself is actually really cool. Hey, Tiberius. Sorry, guys, I'm in need of water. I'm out. So this is form-wise has got a little weird. Like, is it a rock? Is it a mushroom? Is it a spore? Like, I don't know what that is. I'm not sure what their story is. I want to see, I guess, more context with something like this. It just makes me kind of yearn for way too much, and the color job is, again, holding it back. Everything is just blasted out to white in I'd say not an appealing way. Like, I think if you can utilize neutrals, if you can get good at color mixing in a lot of these areas, I think it's going to help quite a bit. Because it seems like there's a cool idea here. These designs seem really cool. Again, it's just kind of pushing and establishing form and getting into that world building. I think will definitely kind of help it out. So, thank you guys for entering. And so, folks, the moment some of you have been waiting for, the next challenge, Wizards of the Lost Kingdom. Yeah, I'm having some fun putting these things together. Let's just call it a wizard war, right? That sounds good. And when all galaxies merge, a hero will emerge. There we go. And also feature a castle. Have some badass tigers flying through the sky. The dark wizard shooting from the towers. Get into it. Just have fun. And looking forward to checking these out. April 14th. Take care.